Commencement for all. Making graduation accessible. Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating in today's webinar, Commencement for All, Making Graduation Accessible. My name is Laura Canast. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a white female with blonde, mid-shoulder length hair, and I'm wearing glasses, a dark teal long sleeve shirt, and my background is a dark purple solid color background. I am the director of strategic support with the National Deaf Center on post-secondary outcomes. We are also known as NDC, and we are federally funded by the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, with the Department of Education, whose mission is to share information, networks, and strategies to improve continuing education and training for deaf people. So, graduation is not too far off, and planning should already be underway at your institutions. So we hope today's webinar will provide you with some resources and tools, making sure that your event is accessible. We do want to note that this webinar focuses on access for deaf people, which also oftentimes benefits other people who are in attendance. Today's webinar is broken up into two parts. First, a presentation portion, and then there will be an opportunity for you to join in one of the two breakout sessions so that you can bring your questions and learn some strategies and tips on how to address more complex level type scenarios. Okay, first we have a poll question, and we are asking, does your institution currently provide sign language interpreting and speech to text, or CART? Could be CPrint or Typewell. Do you provide those services to your graduation without anyone making a request? Yes or no? Okay, I want to give everyone the opportunity to respond to the poll. All right, let's see the responses. Okay, here are the results from the poll. 77% of you say you do provide ASL interpreters or CART or speech-to-text services without a formal request, and 23% do not. All right, thank you for your participation. So moving on, graduation is a time for everyone to sit back and applaud the accomplishments of those students. Accessibility is the key for students, families, and visitors to be attending the ceremony, whether it be in person or online. And to celebrate that and to ensure that everyone can participate, one route that many institutions take in making it easy to provide access is proactively arranging interpreting and speech-to-text services, having assistive listening devices ready and user-ready, braille and large print of programs to be available, accessible routes for individuals with any type of mobility challenges, so videos that are captioned, absolutely, And that is all done without the requirement of graduates and attendees to submit a formal request. We definitely agree and support that approach and believe it is best practices. If you provide access by request, it's very important you have clear protocols in place in terms of who receives those requests and ensure that they are fulfilled. If it's a public event, it's important to provide equal opportunities for friends, families, as well as the students to be in attendance. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act, apply to these types of requests. Some of you may have questions about who should arrange and cover the costs for interpreting and speech-to-text services. We have a resource called Creating Access Campus Visitors, and that resource mentions that policies regarding who arranges and pays for the event accommodations will vary. At some institutions, the Disability Services Office handles the request and the payments, but at other institutions, individual departments or divisions arrange for and fund those needed accommodations. Sometimes it is requested through one department and billed to another department. It's just important for you to understand how those processes work at your institution. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Waiting here for the next slide. Okay. So today we will go through 4 main tips to help you understand the best way to plan proactively. And proactively is the key word here. First is establishing a planning committee. Then we'll talk a little bit about marketing, then communication access and what that might look like, and technology logistics as well. Let's look at the next slide. Okay. The first tip is to take an active role in planning with your planning committee. It is important to communicate to the entire group what access for deaf people will look like and include that in your plan. For example, you may need to bring in the stage crew, technology or facility and construction crew, lighting crew, the communications team, and the security team. All of those individuals will play a role in the overall plan. Facilities, of course, it depends on your venue, how big it is, and what the setting ends up looking like. For example, if it's within an athletic stadium or an arena, you know that they probably have events there often, so you'll want to invite staff who are experienced with setup and technology in those areas. There will be a person there on staff who knows how to connect videos and ensure that captions are visible. So include those people in your plan. Other people could be staff and volunteers who are working and who realize on the day of the event there may be a specific area for deaf people and family members. That way they're able to see the interpretation, and it's important that all of the staff and volunteers working that day know where to direct deaf attendees. It's also important backstage. There may be people who are not aware of barriers that could be in place. So communication with the entire team from backstage, on stage, and in the audience. That communication is so important. Now, the technology part can become complicated, so ensure that your system is ready by including those professionals. That having a committee and making those plans in advance will be critical to your success. Next, let's talk a little bit about marketing. We see often that colleges and institutions will announce an event on the website and their information will be there. We suggest that the accommodations and the request for accommodations be easy to find. Make sure that you announce in your marketing what accommodations are already provided. It would be important to include a point of contact. Who would that person be? Check with your committee to see if you will put in a specific name so that if a request is made, the person it's sent to knows what steps to follow. And provide several options in contacting that main point of contact, whether it be an email, a phone number, or a form. The third bullet point here is timeline. It's important to put a timeline in if you need a deadline for making accommodations requests. Be sure that's included in your marketing. Sometimes you need that request done 4 to 8 weeks beforehand. So make that timeline visible to anyone, because know that your institution is required to provide that access, and you'll need time to not only find access, but then inform those service providers where to go, where to park, all of those types of logistics. Lastly, here we see request procedures. Maybe you have a form. Maybe there is an email or a number where a person making a request can reach out to that point of contact. Make sure you have the full procedure in place so that once the point of contact receives the request, it gets sent to the right person and access can indeed be put in place. Next slide. The third tip is about access and accommodations. As soon as you know the date of the event, secure service providers, sign language interpreters, speech-to-text professionals. Get them booked immediately, even if you don't have all of the details in place. Then, as that event draws nearer, provide those access providers with copies of the script, the presentations, the run of show, the names, the music, and the names of the songs that will be played, to give them ample time to prepare and rehearse for that event. I also encourage you, if your committee is setting up the space, the room, the stage, that you bring service providers beforehand to look over the space and ensure no barriers are in place so that adjustments can be made well in advance. You don't want to wait until the day of to do this proactive work. We often see that graduations have separate types of events and seating. So they'll have the graduates sit in one area, they'll have family sit in a different area, and maybe friends in another area. It would be important that the deaf graduate have access. So maybe they're sitting in an area where they can see the interpreter, but then can deaf family members or deaf friends or deaf faculty also view whatever access providers you have in place? Depending on the size of your venue and how far away the participants are from that service provider, like interpreters or the cart, you want to make sure they can be seen. Sometimes you may sit an interpreter in a specific place and then realize there's a lot of foot traffic that goes between them and the deaf participants. So it may be better to have the interpreter up on stage, raised on a platform so they can be seen regardless of foot traffic. Some students really prefer to sit with their cohort, to sit with their class, and they don't want to sit in a specific area near the interpreters. So make whatever accommodations you need to ensure that that can happen. And of course, there can be a space for deaf participants if needed. There may be one place that works well for all, but the deaf graduate often doesn't want to be separated from that camaraderie and that celebration they can experience with their cohort. So try to honor the request if graduates prefer to not sit in a deaf area. Think about deaf faculty and staff as well. If there are graduates in the audience and also some faculty on stage, you may need to be considering multiple interpreters, multiple teams of interpreters, so that everyone can have access to what is happening. Okay, speech to text services is another issue. There may be a monitor that can be set up near the deaf participant. You may consider a larger monitor that can be seen by the entire audience. If that isn't available to you, you may need multiple monitors in various areas so that everyone can access that CART or speech to text. Okay, let's look at the next slide. And I apologize that the picture here is not correct, but assistive listening devices are important to amplify sound, reduce background noise, and provide direct feed to audio. In settings where acoustics are a factor, assistive listening systems can increase the quality of access in arenas or outdoors. Make sure that staff knows how to use and maintain these devices. They can't simply be handed over to a deaf person to figure out. It's important that the staff understand how to use it and troubleshoot. Captioned media. Often at graduations, pre-recorded videos are shown. We recommend adding open captions that are provided for everyone, even if there is live streaming captions and interpreters. Best practice is to provide open captioning, meaning you have that video done and captioned, and the captions are instantly a part of that video. It's nice to also have it open captioned, a part of that video, so that you don't have to worry about any special technology or connecting anything to make sure the captions work. And again, at that committee, you need to decide who is responsible for ensuring all of the media shown is accessible. The more we get into this, the more details you see come into play, and how critical it is to have multiple people involved and that committee set early in the process. More and more graduations we see now are adding live streaming options. And that means people can come and watch from wherever they might be. They don't have to be in person. Well, that live streaming is a whole separate area to work out access that will look different and be different than an in-person event. Live captions and interpreters can both be placed in a live stream. We have the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, that need to be followed. The interpreter can be spotlighted, and speech to text needs to be readable and seen by all participants. If you have provided interpreters and speech to text in person, you can discuss with your committee how to possibly bring in the CART from the live event to also play over into the live streamed event. Captions can also be embedded and connected beforehand. And interpreters can be shown either side by side or picture in picture. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in the next screen, or the next slide. So you can see here, maybe you have a Jumbotron at your facility and there's a huge screen where you can have a picture-in-picture shown. If you see the top picture here in this slide, you will see the dean speaking with a picture-in-picture of the sign language interpreter. And it's nearly side-by-side size. And you can see that's something that can be streamed or on a Jumbotron. Technology is pretty amazing in how the interpreter can be incorporated. There are also LED bars and displays that can be used for captioning. And I have a photo of that second photo there. It's not super clear in the photo, but you can see the green right there. They do have captions, which is fantastic, but the readability is not fantastic. So you want to think about the readability of not just the captions, but the background behind the interpreter and ensuring that it's not so distracting that the interpreter cannot be seen. And if you're filming the interpreter, that's also a consideration. Often we'll see the filming of the interpreter and the camera person may not realize that they need to stay trained on that sign language interpreter and not film other things that are going on. So again, that's where it's critical that the entire staff and crew understand accessibility and what the goals are. Let's look at our next slide. So just a disclaimer here. This is a photo just to give you a visual idea. This scenario did not happen with this institution that I have pictured here. They're not connected at all. I just wanted to make that clear as you look at this. I don't want you to think this is where it actually happened. But there is a scenario where the graduates were seated on the center floor in an arena and the Jumbotron was up above them. And the audience had clear visibility to the screens and could see captions and interpreters, but the graduates could not. They were under the Jumbotron and could not see. So even a great accessibility tool like this Jumbotron may not be accessible to everyone. You really have to think through who all needs access, where they will be sitting, whether it be on stage, on the floor, in the audience, and if they will have access to the service providers you've put in place. Also think about outdoor arenas, outdoor situations. Where will the sun be? If the sun is shining where everyone's supposed to be looking, that really just completely shuts down visibility. So you have to consider your entire environment, consider sunrise and sunset if you're outside, and think about all of those things for both captions and sign language interpreters. Okay, next slide. Here at NDC, we have a help team or help desk, and we have gotten questions such as this. I want to share this one with you. There is a school that wanted to provide speech-to-text services, even though the deaf attendees wanted an interpreter. So the question that I would ask is it enough to just provide speech-to-text? Speech-to-text can provide access to many people, but it's not one size fits all. There are preferences and language preferences that are important to consider. And if deaf participants request a sign language interpreter, it's important to include that, even if you've already included speech-to-text. So we kind of are going back to the beginning of best practices. The best practice is to provide sign language interpreters and speech-to-text services. You must be proactive in every aspect and every step of planning access well in advance, way ahead of time, and with a committee of multiple people to make sure that you're not scrambling on the day of to get access in place. If you end up only providing access if it is requested, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. but you definitely want to make sure you have all the protocols and processes in place for if that request comes in. It's also important to have a backup plan if technology fails on the day of. What will be your plan B, your plan C? Okay, moving on. That is the end of our formal presentation. I do hope this information has been helpful for you to start thinking about how you will check and make sure your next graduation event is accessible. Maybe your first step is finding out what staff and faculty should be a part of your committee. Right now, we have breakout rooms available. We will go there and answer some questions. We have members of our help team here today who will be in those breakout sessions, and we'll discuss some questions there. And if you have any further questions, feel free to send us an email. Thank you.